Next, we have Deborah Rutman. Deb is an adjunct associate professor with the School of Social Work at the University of Victoria and a co-founder of Nota Bene Consulting Group. Since 1994, Deborah has undertaken research exploring the strengths, challenges, and experiences of people living with FASD in order to identify supportive policies, programs, and practices. As a consultant, Deborah has undertaken a number of evaluations of programs for vulnerable women with substance use issues and for young people, families, and women with FASD. Welcome, Deb.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. When Linda asked and Nancy asked me to say a few words about research and my work, I guess, within that, the only thing that really came up for me was talking about values and about frameworks and theory. And that actually even surprised me because I never really saw myself as being a really theoretical kind of person, whatever that means. But I think what I realized in the last few years of the work that I've been doing with many colleagues in the room and not even here right now is that all of us carry with us our values, our principles, our frameworks for how we view and understand the world. And we do that every single day. Although we may not even be aware or have articulated what they are, but they're the choices we make, including the choices you've made to be in the room here tonight with us. And one of the important lessons that I think, and one of the privileges that I've had as a researcher and a researcher working with this NAD on the projects that I've been involved with, is to have that opportunity to do some work that helps us to identify what some of the really key sort of conceptual or theoretical or principles are that are underlining the work of FASD prevention and support for people living with FASD. And I think it was Holly who mentioned in her, so a lot of this is going to be kind of dovetailing with what Holly was saying, but some years ago when our NAT first started, as a group, collectively, showing that value of working as a group, we identified those 10, well, came out to be 10, fundamental principles of FASD prevention. And again, that came from a place, from a really, really deep theoretical or philosophical place. More recently, with Marilyn Van Bibber, who's with us in the room tonight, and Nancy and my colleagues Carol Hubberstein and Sharon Hume, you may have heard or seen even these circle-y things, which has been our conceptual way of trying to show what mapping or thinking about evaluation and to some degree program development in working on programs related to FASD, either FASD prevention, FASD support, or FASD programming within Aboriginal communities might look like. And that kind of pinkish circle in the middle there, which is hard to see, but we have some extra maps in the back of the room, show us a little bit more about what those different conceptual concepts look like, the theoretical concepts. The privilege that I feel that I've had as an FASD based, sort of evaluator and researcher is to be able to work with people living with FASD, with families, with program providers, with other researchers, and even with funders, I shouldn't say even with funders, about what does this mean? What does it mean to really be FASD informed or trauma informed? Why does that matter? What it would look like, and how you might know if you've gotten there. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of any of that, but I did just want to say how important I think that has been, for me, and I think it echoes a lot of what Dorothy was saying as well. In my own research work most recently, we've again tried by listening to the voices of women living with FASD, as well as service providers, as well as doing a literature review, we were again trying to tease out what the notion of FASD informed is. And even though we've been thinking about FASD and what FASD informed and what that means for a very long time. I think it's actually been only relatively recently that we've really tried to articulate what that on the ground looks like and feels like, and why it is so important. And this is just a strand of the importance of combining an FASD lens with a gender lens in looking at what are promising approaches and appropriate approaches for working with women who have FASD, which is a key message of one of the projects. I just want to switch gears a little bit, but just saying, because there's the title of my talk was also about honoring values. And about a year ago, I had the opportunity, I was invited to come to Saskatchewan and talk about my journey as an FASD researcher. And again, I kind of went, oh my gosh, what am I going to figure out to say about that? And I really worked at it for some time. First of all, FASD researcher as a term didn't make any sense to me. So instead, it was researching people's lives and FASD. And again, that to me reflects a little bit about a choice of how we even use language as a researcher, as a policymaker, and so on. And I hear that reflected in what we've been saying tonight. My talk then came out to be my journey amidst the 7 C's. The C's that ended up being part of that journey: capacity, compassion, context, courage, complexity, champions, and commitment. It's not about me, it's not about my capacity, but it started from that place of recognizing the capacity of people living with FASD to be able to voice their own stories and experiences, and the importance of doing that. And so in thinking through that journey, for me, ended up being a place of, for each of these C's, there were some really important values that I came to appreciate that kind of went with me in doing the research work that I did. Context is hugely important, as Dorothy was just talking about. The complexity of FASD we've heard a lot about in this conference, and we've heard a lot about tonight. And it can't be reduced to sound bites. The champions, I think, again, all of you, all of us in this room represent that. But I have to also honor a very early champion for me, who was a woman who was at Crabtree Corner, Betty, and I can't remember her last name. First FASD meeting I ever went to was a small gathering, and we sat around the room, and the question she asked is, what's your connection to FASD? She didn't ask where we worked. She didn't ask what our professional discipline was. She asked about connection. And that goes back to Denise, who was talking about the Alberta Denise, who was talking about the fact that we all have that connection and how important that is. So I just want to leave you with the last C, which was about commitment, because for me, the value that's attached to commitment is action. And action is what is bringing us and keeping us here in this room, even though our stomachs may be growling and we know that those munchies that Linda mentioned are coming soon. But I just really want to urge you, each of you, to be thinking about your own journey. And whether they're C's or whether they're L's or whether they're Q's, it doesn't matter. You've each got that. And that drives what you do in your everyday life. Thank you.